of interest. A member who has an impartial proximity of financial interest in any matter to be discussed at this meeting must disclose the nature of the interest either in written notice given to the Chief Executive Officer prior to the meeting or at the meeting immediately before the matter is discussed. A member who makes a disclosure in respect to an interest must not preside at the part of the meeting which deals with the matter or participate in or be present during any discussions or decision-making process relative to the matter unless the disclosing member is permitted to do so under Section 5.68 or Section 5.69 of the Local Government Act 1995. Dr. Gary Hunt, may I please request for you to read the declaration of interest, please?
Thank you, President Smith. The first one is from yourself. It's direct financial interest. Interest description: my husband is an employee of Rio Tinto and holds shares exceeding the prescribed threshold. I'm a committee member with the Aware Group Incorporated, which has a partnership with Rio Tinto. Second declaration, Councillor Lynch, indirect financial interest. I'm an employee and tenant of Rio Tinto and paid a salary by Pilbara Iron. Third declaration, Councillor Kapoor, indirect financial interest. My husband is employed by Rio Tinto. My family and I reside in a Rio Tinto-owned housing and benefit from the subsidised rent utilities. Councillor Rumble, JP, direct financial interest. I'm a shareholder of Rio Tinto Limited of a value exceeding the prescribed amount, and this is part of my retirement fund. Councillor Healy, indirect financial interest. My husband works for Rio Tinto. We do not reside in Rio Tinto housing but do receive housing support payments. Our bills are subsidised by the company. Request... the next are the individual items, which is item 15.2, request for tender 0525, construction of sport lighting upgrade. Declaration, President Smith, direct financial interest. My husband is the employee of Rio Tinto, same as what I read for the first declaration. Councillor Lynch, indirect financial interest, same declaration as he did, as I read out for the first one. Councillor Kapoor, indirect financial interest, same comments as I first read out. Councillor Rumble, direct financial interest, same comments as I read a moment or two ago. And Councillor Healy, indirect financial interest, again the same comments as previously listed. Final, community grants audit, item 6.2, declaration by President Smith, impartiality. I'm a board member of the Aware Group.
Thank you, Dr. Hunt. Item 6, announcement by the presiding member and councillors without discussion. Councillor Lynch, do you have any announcement?
No announcements.
Councillor Kapoor?
No.
Councillor Healy?
No.
Councillor White?
No.
Councillor Rumble?
Do I need a declaration on the grant story or at all?
It depends on, are you in any committee or any...
I'm on a committee of the Paraburdoo Men's Shed. Yeah.
Then you should have
Okay,
an
could
impartiality.
I apologise. I just overlooked.
That's okay.
Yeah,
You can
yeah. Thank you. But otherwise,
just noted that Councillor Rumble has declared an impartiality for the...
Thank you.
And you have no announcement, Councillor Rumble?
No at all. No.
Thank you. And me, myself, none. Item 7, petitions, deputations, presentations. 7.1, petitions, we do not have any. 7.2, deputations, we do not have any. 7.3, presentations, we do not have any. Item 8, application for leave of absence. 8.1, application for leave of absence. For recommendation that Council approve a request for leave of absence for Councillor Galliner of Panoramica Ward for the period of 15th of April to 15th of April 2025 inclusive. May I please have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Kapoor. Second, Councillor Lynch. Can I please have a show of hands, councillors, that you are in support of this leave? Thank you. That is carried 6-0. 8.2, another application for leave of absence. The recommendation approves the request for leave of absence for Councillor Kapoor of the Tom Price Ward for the period of 20th of May 2025 to the 20th of May 2025 inclusive. May I please have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Lynch and Councillor White. Councillors, may I please have a show of hands that you support this? Thank you. That is carried 6-0. Item 9, en bloc resolution, Council Resolution 9.1, agenda items adopted en bloc. The following items have been adopted en bloc. 10.1.1, minutes of the annual general electors meeting held on 18th of March 2025. 10.1.2, minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on 18th of March 2025. 10.2.1, minutes of the senior leadership team meeting held on the 26th of February 2025. 10.2.2, minutes of the Inland Local Emergency Management Committee meeting held on the 24th of March 2025. 10.2.3, minutes of the Onslow Local Emergency Management Committee meeting held on the 25th of March 2025. 10.2.4, minutes of the Pannawonica Local Emergency Management Committee meeting held on the 26th of March 2025. Councillors, may I please have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Healy and Councillor Kapoor. Councillor Healy being the mover, do you have anything to speak on this agenda item? Councillor Kapoor, would you like to speak? Councillors, since we have no, can we please have a show of hands if you're in support of these en bloc items? That is carried 6-0. Item 11, recommendation from committee. Community Grants Committee meeting held on the 15th of April 2025. CGC.1 Community Support Grant Application Round 2 2024-2025. The committee's recommendation that Community Grants Committee recommends that Council approves the following application: Pannawonica Kindy Gym for the amount of $2,500, Pilbara Trailblazer, Onslow Gazelle, amount of $2,500, Tom Price Drive-In for the amount of $2,500, Paraburdoo Men's Shed for the amount of $875, Onslow Ocky Swimming Club for the amount of $2,500, Pannawonica Dingoes Cricket Club for the amount of $2,500, Pannawonica Fishing Club for the amount of $2,500, Tom Price Motorcycle Club Inc. for the amount of $2,500, Tom Price Touch Association for the amount of $2,500, Elucidate Education for the amount of $800. 2, declines the following application: Pannawonica Pythons Football Club for the amount of $2,000, Pannawonica Golf Club for the amount of $2,500, Tom Price Junior Soccer Club for the amount of $2,500. 3, note that the funds will not be released until all required supporting documentation have been provided by the applicant. May I please have a mover and a seconder? Councillor White and Councillor Kapoor. Councillor White, as the mover, would you like to speak on this item? Councillor Kapoor. Councillors, is there anyone like to speak against this item? There's no. Can I please have a show of hands that you support of this? That is carried 6-0. CGC.2 Community Grants Review Audit 2, financial year 2022-2023 to financial year 2024-2025. The recommendation from the committee that the Community Grants Committee recommends that Council accepts the Committee Grants Review undertaken as detailed in Attachment 1. Councillors, may I please have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Lynch and Councillor Healy. Councillor Lynch, would you like to speak on this item? Councillor Healy? No. Is there anyone who'd like to speak against this item? If no, can we please have a show of hands in support of this item? That is carried 6-0. Item 12, Chief of the Executive Office of the Chief Executive Officer reports 12.1 proposed lease over portion of lot 500 McGrath Avenue, Onslow. The recommendation that Council authorises the Chief Executive Officer to approve the negotiated commercial terms in relation to developing a new lease agreement with One Tree Community Service Incorporated of 5 years with a further 5-year option at $13,500 plus GST. 2. Authorises the Chief Executive Officer to execute a lease agreement between the Shire of Ashburton and 1-3 Community Services Incorporated for a portion of lot 500 McGrath Avenue, Onslow. Councillors, is there any questions to this item?
Yeah, I do.
Councillor, can you please?
Sorry. Yeah, I do. I have a concern with the further 5-year option at $13,500. That's a 10-year lease at no extra money coming into the Shire for the option of the next 5 years. And who's to say One Tree are still going to be operating then?
Sorry, Councillor
Yeah.
White, we need to ask a question because we're not in a debate at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, you
Yes.
can ask a question, but
Can I ask why an extra 5-year option was given at $13,500 plus GST to the Deputy CEO, please?
Thank you for that question, Councillor White. I think it's about trying to provide some certainty to the provider. There's very limited providers that are willing to operate that, and they're obviously operating it without much profit. We're already subsidising it to encourage them to be here and trying to get a level of certainty around the provision of the service because it is important to the community.
any further questions? All right, may I please have a mover and a seconder for this item? Councillor Rumble, Councillor Healy. Councillor Rumble, would you like to speak on this as a mover?
I think it's pretty straightforward, the document. I don't see any need to say any more.
Councillor Healy, as a seconder, would you like to speak on this item?
I think that it's a well-needed community service, so I think it's good that we're providing some help in that regard for a location for long term.
Is there anyone who likes to speak against this item? You need to press it.
Didn't come up. Yeah, I
Councillor
would because
Brown.
I'm concerned about the extra 5 years. I'm not concerned about the first 5 years. It's because of One Tree's reputation here in Paraburdoo and in Onslow, and we have given them everything possible that we can, and I just feel that an extra 5 years makes it 10. It's just the extra 5 years is just too much at the moment. That's my argument.
Thank you, Councillor White. Is there anyone who'd like to speak for the item? If there's no one, Councillor Rumble, would you like to speak as the mover to close this debate?
Yes, I believe that Councillor White has raised a good point, and maybe Council should consider the second term of the 5-year agreement to review that contract.
Are you for or against? Are you closing?
At the moment, I'm sort of going against it.
You moved it.
I know. But can you go against it if you moved it or not?
Point of order, we're debating the current recommendation, not a
We
new
are debating the
recommendation.
current recommendation.
All right.
Yes. We are,
Okay, I support the item, providing there's a...
You don't support it yet.
No.
When
we,
you vote.
we are going to now put show of hands, councillors, if you support this item. That is 4-2. Item 13, Corporate Service Report. 13.1, Monthly Schedule of Accounts Paid, March 2025. The recommendation at Council, in accordance with Regulation 13 and 13A of the Local Government Financial Management Regulation 1996, confirms the monthly schedule of accounts paid for March 2025, inclusive of purchasing cards payment for March 2025, as included at Attachment 1. Councillors, do you have any questions for this item? If not, may I please have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Rumble and Councillor Lynch. Councillor Rumble, as the mover, would you like to speak on this?
No, it's okay, Madam President. I'm fine with the document. Thank you.
Councillor Lynch, being the seconder, do you want to speak on this? No, thank you. If there's no more, is there anyone who'd like to speak against this item? There's no further debate. Oh, I will, sorry.
No. Get ready to put my hand up, that's all.
Can I please have a show of hands in support of this? Thank you, that is carried 6-0. 13.2, monthly financial statements, March 2025. Recommendation that Council, in accordance with Regulation 34 of the Local Government Financial Management Regulations 1996, accept the statement of financial activity and associated documentation for March 2025 as included at attachment 1. Are there any further questions, Councillor? Yes, Councillor White.
I have some questions for the Director of Corporate Services and side of things, and we've got a sum of 14 million in there, and it's showing that it is down. How did you, Director, come to the conclusion that there was 14 million and what's it in there for? Can you tell me what buildings? Can you give us a list later on?
Through the chair. So the depreciation comes from the asset register that's maintained in the My Data asset register. All assets that the Shire has that's in the balance sheet are depreciating, and so we did the revaluation last year for the infrastructure class and the buildings. So the depreciation is a direct calculation based on the assessment of the value of the buildings at that time and the effective life that those assets still have, to go. So it's essentially all of our assets and a calculation of how long they're still to go. We can provide a complete list of the depreciation schedule. It would amount to thousands and thousands of individual assets across buildings, infrastructure, roads, etc., to make up that thing.
The question is mainly on the housing. When we received those houses from Rio, we got 30 that we paid $30 for. Were they put in at the correct value or the $30?
So no, through the chair. So under fair value accounting, when those assets come on at $1 each, we're required under the accounting standards to get those formally fair valued. So they would have been brought on, and there's been an allocation both to the land value and the current written down fair value of each of those houses.
Second part of the question is, when we do repairs on them, is the money taken from our housing budget or the depreciation budget?
So through the chair, we don't have a depreciation budget as such. The depreciation budget in the statement of financial activity that council receives each month is essentially a non-cash item. It's an accounting figure that goes through and gets compiled at the end of the year. Any money that's actually physically spent on the houses either goes through the materials and contracts operating expense if it's minor maintenance, and then also there is some money that will go through the capital jobs if we're doing major refurbishments, re-roofs, those sorts of things. So there is no correlation between what we're actually physically spending and the depreciation figure in the statement of financial activity.
So that depreciation budget will just increase every year and not decrease at any stage?
Through the chair,
it hasn't. So
no. So I think this year, for example, I think the depreciation, the budget is actually more than prior years. It will change up and down depending on the market conditions and what the valuations of our assets do, and the assessment of their effective life. So The depreciation figure in the statement of financial activity is more a guide to council to indicate from an accounting perspective that there is a consumption of your fixed assets happening, out there. It's not actually money that you're spending, so it should only be a guide. And fortunately, as a local government, we're not subjected to income taxation. Depreciation is probably a bigger thing in private enterprise. In ours, it's more a notional figure and represents the consumption of our fixed assets.
Okay, and the second question I have got is, a long time ago, and not so recently ago, after we've done our budgets, etc., we used to have a list of our assets that was separate, like so that people could see how much was in the budget for the Tom Price admin building. Used to have 13 million in there. That's not in there anymore. The airport used to have like 8 million in there. That's not showing anymore. All that money, I presume, is in future projects. Well, how can you explain what the future projects are to the people around the table who can't keep tabs on how much we actually do have as in the fund for those, where it used to be shown our big assets were always listed and now they've disappeared?
True.
We need to have that brought back, and because over time money has disappeared and we can't tell what is in future projects or not. So may we have, please, a list of the future projects so that around the table can understand how much money is in there and what it's for?
Through the chair, I think, Councillor White, what you may be referring to there is our reserve balances. So that, I'll check the financial report. We should be reporting that to you, monthly. Off the top of my head, for example, the airport at the moment has something like 12 million. The airport has a reserve of $12 million. And we can give you the history of that reserve and how it's been sort of running down over the last 6 to 8 years as the turnover, etc., has dropped. We've also, this year, we've increased the amount that council has budgeted for the Tom Price admin building. We started this year at around 12 to 13 million. With the budget amendments we made in September, October of this year, we've increased that. So by the end of the year, we should have about 19 million. They're the two major reserves that we've got, and we've also got a future reserve that has money in there that is, I guess, there for future projects, but it is for council to make a decision as to which projects that we provide it to. And through the budget process this year, we will certainly go through in detail with council where we think our reserve balances are going to be at the end of this year, and perhaps try a couple of other suggested ideas as to how we can track and also allocate to specific projects as well.
Yes, because when you read this, and for those around the table, it looks like the airport's only got about 1.5 million or 1.8 million in it, instead of the 12 million that was always there for the airport in reserves from its thing before.
So the temporary CEO will be answering that question too. Thank you.
If I can help, Councillor White, on page 184 of the attachment, the airport has actually got $9 million.
Used to have 8,
I take your point. If you go down about 3 parts of the way, it says future projects. You might recall that when we did Budget Workshop 3, we put up at the very end a whole series of projects which are notional projects or projects that you've identified as a council you want to pursue. What we don't have is numbers attached to those, and what we're hoping to do in the next session is start putting some broad brush numbers on. So what we can do after that is put a separate list under the reserve funds of the projects that you've notionally set money aside. Does that give you comfort?
It does, because the rest of the table have to know all this, and they don't understand that this is how it used to be and this is what it is. And it's the same like when you look at your materials and contracts.
Sorry, Councillor White.
Another question,
Yeah, you need to ask a question. We're not in a debate.
Sorry. We have a yield of 15 million, and I know there's a variance of 10 million showing here, and that will probably go out in the projects that we've already got. So then there's a whole big pile of leftover material and contracts money. that we're very unsure of what is going to happen with that and what it's for.
Through the chair, if I can, that's a point I would like to spend some time with council, certainly through the budget process. I have been speaking to the CEO. We're proposing that we probably take a little bit of a different approach to the budget, this year in terms of OPEX. So that materials and contracts is made up of, many different operational areas from the Shire. It's probably fair to say that there's a reasonable amount of capacity that's built up over the years in particularly materials and contracts. What we're possibly suggesting this year is that we strip that out from the 25-26 budget and immediately budget a reserve transfer to something like the future projects reserve. And then as projects advance and project managers need funding for things like consultancy or design, etc., that it comes back from the reserve rather than being in the operating budget to start with. It'll give us more oversight and clearance of that sort of expenditure. So that is a discussion that we'll certainly have at the next budget workshop.
Thanks very much. That's it.
All right. Any further questions? If not, may I please have a mover and a seconder for this item. Councillor Lynch and Councillor Healy. Councillor Lynch, would you like to speak as a mover? No. Councillor Healy? No. Is there anyone who'd like to speak against this item? If there's no one, then can I please, I close the debate and can I please have a show of hands, councillors, if you recommend this? That's carried. 6-0. 13.3. Australian Local Government Association National General Assembly bank closures across regional Australia. The officer's recommendation that Council endorse the following motion to be submitted to the 2025 Australian Local Government Association National General Assembly as follows. This Assembly now calls on the Australian Government to 1. Endorse the findings of Local Government Bank Feasibility Study and the preferred banking model as a viable solution to restore and sustain banking services in regional and remote communities. Call on the Australian Government to support a more detailed study into the financial, operational and technical aspects of implementing this model, including risk assessment, regulatory compliance, cost analysis, resource requirements and scalability. 3. Urges the Australian Government to explore partnership agreements with licensed financial institutions to utilise local government assets for service delivery. 4. Recommends the investigation of expanding bank at post services in remote communities as part of the broader initiative to improve regional banking access. And 5. Call on the Australian Government to subsidise the costs incurred by residents in regional and remote communities to access the limited transactional banking services available, ensuring affordability and equitable access to financial services. Councillor Lynch, I see you have a proposed amendment to be included as a point. Would you like to read it?
Madam President. Yes, so I'd like to add the point. Calls on the Australian Government to subsidise card transaction fees and surcharges incurred by residents in regional and remote communities.
All right. Is there any further questions, councillors, on this item? If I don't have any, can I please have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Lynch and Councillor Kapoor. Councillor Lynch, as the mover, would you like to speak on this item?
Not necessarily on the item. I'd like to make a comment if possible.
Yep.
So if Council recalls that President Smith, CEO Ken Donohoe, Media Manager Amelia and myself went to the National General Assembly last year and put forward a proposal, a motion to do a feasibility study into bringing banking services back and probably mainly having local governments as the provider. The feasibility has come back with, it's probably not as, well, not to our liking fully, because it did show that it was not feasible for us to provide all services, all banking services. But we will be able to provide some services, and this will go back to the National General Assembly ALGA this year, and this will be our motion. The Director of Corporate Services probably has a bit more information on it than I do. If he has any comments.
Director of Corporate Service.
No, through the chair, I think that sums it up pretty well. And if we can use this to further leverage it this year's ALGA and get some movement for regional areas, I think it'll be positive and show that Shire of Ashburton, has at least had a go.
Okay. Councillor Kapoor, would you like to speak on it? I would like to. Anyone would like to speak against this item? No. So if not, we'll close this debate. And councillors, may I please have a show? Oh, yes.
To do the amendment
Yeah.
first,
Oh,
and then
sorry.
do the motion.
And can I please have a show of hands that we support this recommendation? That's carried 6-0.
So I need to put the motion. That was the amendment.
Amendment, yeah.
I now put
Put
that
it same.
That's now the primary motion.
So,
the substantive motion.
Can I please have a move and second for the whole? That's Councillor Lynch and Councillor Kapoor again. Can I please have a show of hands for support of that amendment? Thank you. That is carried 6-0. 13.4 Delegation Amendment 1.1.14 Tenders for Goods and Services. Temporary CEO, did you want to speak on this item first before we?
Thank you, Madam President. Essentially, this is our proposal to the council to overcome the problem that you encountered in the meeting at Onslow, where through a series of declarations, effectively not able to transact business. The way we would get around this is once the program for Aspire is adopted, where we have to go to tender for those projects, the delegated authority to the CEO would then be to progress those projects and tenders. We would still circulate all the information so you knew it before I signed it off, or whoever the CEO signs it off, but at least will get us out of the predicament we face at the moment, which holds up projects, which then costs money. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, may I please have a mover and seconder for this recommendation? Councillor Healy and Councillor Kapoor. Councillor Healy, would you like to speak on this? Councillor Kapoor, would you like? Is there anyone who'd like to speak against this item? No. Councillors, may I please have a show of hands if you support this? That is carried 6-0. 13.5 Appointments of presiding and deputy presiding members and other matters, committees of council. Council reaffirms and formally appoints the following incumbent elected members as presiding and deputy presiding members of the Shire of Ashburton Committee as listed as required by Section 5.12 of the Local Government Act 1995 for a term expiring on 18th of October 2025. Audit and Risk Management Committee, Shire President Audrey Smith, presiding member, Councillor Kerry White, deputy presiding member. Chief Executive Officer, Recruitment and Performance Review Committee, Shire President Audrey Smith, myself, presiding member, and Councillor Alana Sullivan, deputy presiding member. Community Grants Committee, Councillor Kerry White, presiding member, Councillor Matthew Lynch, deputy presiding member. Economic and Tourism Development Committee, Councillor Matthew Lynch, presiding member, Councillor Alana Sullivan, deputy presiding member. 2. Endorses the consequential amendments to the committee and working group booklet as detailed in attachment 1. Are there any questions on this item? Yes, Councillor Rumble.
Through the chair, are we confirming them to continue on for the next period of time or not?
Till the 18th of October.
Okay.
When we
No, yeah, that's the question. Thank you.
That is due to the change of legislation. And if there's no further questions, may I please have a move and say Councillor Lynch and Councillor White. Councillor Lynch, would you like to speak on this item? No. Councillor White? All right, if there's no debate, can I please have a show of hands who is supportive of this item? That's carried 6-0. Item 14, Infrastructure Services Report, 14.1, Establishment of a Waste Committee. Before we commence, councillors, I would like to ask for us to suspend standing orders. So I'd like to move that. And may I please have a seconder? Councillor Kapoor. Is there anyone against that? Can I please have a show of hands support for that is pardon? Kapoor is the mover. So we will suspend standing orders now to discuss this at 1:39 p.m. So councillors, previously this item did come up, and I think when there was many of us unavailable, and I did make contact with all councillors except for Councillor Garner, who I couldn't reach, and it was I think I just suppose want to ask who would like to go on this committee. And I know Councillor Sullivan does too. I have spoken to Councillor De Pledge previously, and he have said he can't commit due to his work commitments. So we'll have Councillor Rumble, Councillor White, Councillor Healy, Councillor Sullivan, and Councillor Lynch. Councillor Kapoor, you're happy not to be in? Oh, you want to? No? All right. I suppose now we'll have to vote. No, we go back.
Go back.
Yeah.
and then-
So what I'm going to do now is we're going to go back to discuss it. Yeah. Yeah. Are we going to discuss this? Did we want to discuss who would like to be presiding member and a deputy? Can you please?
Sorry, I'd like to nominate Councillor White, just for her knowledge of the background of this facility.
Yep. Councillor
I'd
Rumble?
second that as well.
So Councillor Lynch is nominating Councillor White for presiding member. Is there anyone else who'd like to nominate themselves? No? Okay, how about... So, Council, we need a deputy presiding member now. Would anyone like to nominate?
I'll nominate Councillor Rumble.
Thank you.
Councillor Rumble, do you accept that nomination?
I accept that, Madam President. Yeah.
Anyone else like to nominate themselves? Or anyone else on the as presiding member, deputy presiding member? That was easy. So we have that. Councillor White as the presiding member and Councillor Rumble as the deputy presiding member. All right. May I please have? I'll move it to resume standing orders, and may I please have a mover, please? Councillor Healy. Okay. Councillor Healy, can I have a show of hands that we all resume? Yep, that's carried 6-0.
Oh, second.
It's Councillor Healy. I moved it.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. So, officers' recommendation that Council 1 establish a waste committee in accordance with section 5.8 of the Local Government Act 1995. 2. Endorse the committee's term of reference as detailed in attachment 1. 3. Appoints the following 5 elected members to this committee as follows. We'll have Councillor White, Councillor Rumble, Councillor Healy, Councillor Lynch and Councillor Sullivan, with all other elected members being appointed as Deputy Committee Member with all terms expiring on 18th of October 2025. 4. For the appointment made at point 3, A to E appoints Councillor White as the presiding member of the committee and B, Councillor Rumble as the Deputy Presiding Member of the committee. 5. Approves the committee's 2025 meeting schedule to coincide with adopted 2025 Ordinary Council meeting schedule as follows. A. 15th of July 2025, 8:30 a.m. and 9th of December 2025, 9 a.m. Support the committee and working group booklet publication being updated accordingly. Before we move this, I do have a question. If this committee only expires on the 18th of October 2025, why have we scheduled a date for after that?
When we do the other committee meetings.
Hang on, sorry, Deputy Temporary CEO of Governance Manager.
Thank you. Generally, we set meeting dates for a calendar year. It doesn't really need to align to the election
Okay,
period.
thank
You'll
you.
just reappoint members after the election.
All right, thank you. May I please have a move? Seconder, Councillor Lynch and Councillor Rumble. Councillor Lynch, as a mover, would you like to speak on this? No. Councillor Rumble, a seconder?
No, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Is there anyone who'd like to speak against this item? If there's no one, can I please have councillors show of hands if you support this item? That is carried 6-0. Congratulations, Councillor White and Councillor Rumble and everyone else on the committee. 14.2, proposed landscaping, lot 247, Coolabah Street, Tom Price, funding requests. Recommendation at council, list for consideration.
Well, do I have to declare an interest in that with Rio Tinto being in?
No, this is our own funding that we are paying for it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
That council list for consideration an additional budget allocation of $873,897 in the 2025-2026 annual budget deliberations for the complete upgrading works on lot 247 Coolabah Street, Tom Price, plus road and landscaping improvement works on Coolabah Street. Are there any questions on this item? No. May I please have a mover, and it's Councillor Lynch. Councillor Kapoor. Councillor Lynch, would you like to speak on this item as a mover?
Yeah, it'll be good to see this area beautified from the dust bowl it is at the moment.
Councillor Kapoor, would you like to? No. Is there anyone who'd like to speak against this item? If there's no one, I'll close the debate. Can I please have a show of hands in support of this item? That is carried 6-0. 14.3, request for tender 2.25 maintenance and upgrade works regional roads. Council adopts the evaluation panel's recommendation as provided in confidential attachment 1 and approves the awards of contract to tenderer 1 to undertake the tender of works under request for tender 2.24 maintenance and upgrade works regional roads for the total contract price of $6,267,816.58 excluding GST. 2. Authorises the Chief Executive Officer to negotiate and enter into a formal contract with tenderer 1 for the tendered works under request for tender 2.25 maintenance and upgrade works regional roads. 3. Approve a budget variation as per the following table on the screen. Councillors, is there any questions on this item? Not. May I please have a mover and a second? Councillor Rumble and Councillor White. Councillor Rumble, as the mover, would you like to speak?
Yeah, it's well overdue this. We need to do our work on our roads. We always talk about it. This is an opportunity to put that in action. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor White, would you like to speak on it?
Oh, no, I'm pleased to.
You're fine?
support this, yes.
Yeah. All right. Is there anyone like to speak against this item? If not, councillors, may I please have a show of hands in support? That is carried 6-0. 14.4, Road Asset Management Plan 2025-2035. The recommendation, Council endorses the Road Asset Management Plan 2025-2035 as provided at Attachment 1. Considers the allocation of $124,739 as determined by the Road Asset Management Plan 2025 to 2035 for road asset renewal projects during the 2025-2026 annual budget deliberations. 3. Considers the adjustment of the long-term financial plan to reflect the renewal works program as per the Road Assets Management Plan 2025-2035. Is there anyone who'd like to ask questions on this? Yes, Councillor White, can you?
Yes, can I speak to the Minister, Director of Infrastructure Services? The question is regarding our budget workshop last week regarding the Peter Muller Road, and the total amount of what we looked at for these roads was 15 million, and I can't see anywhere that we have, it looks like we've included the Peter Muller Road into this. Is that correct?
Director of Infrastructure.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. No, this item doesn't deal with where the money will be spent. It's just looking at allocating a global figure of 15 million. Council still has to make the decision on where the 15 million gets spent as part of the annual budget consideration and adoption.
Any further questions?
Perhaps I can just add, when we did the last budget workshop, that was to allocate top-end dollars to key areas. The individual schedules, a lot of those will come back to you so that you see what actually makes up those numbers. So you'll know the projects, and even if there's an englobo figure we don't have a breakup, that money cannot be spent until you've agreed the program.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there any further questions? May I please have a mover and a second? Councillor Rumble and Councillor Lynch. Councillor Rumble, as the mover, would you
Yeah, I
like to
will
speak
talk on this item. I think it's good that we've got a financial plan. The councillors can see where the money's spread out over a period of time, and that's good planning, I think. And as was explained by the officer, that it's not set in concrete where the money's going to be spent, but it'll be spent on roads and improvements. So I support this item.
Councillor Lynch, would you like to speak on this item? No? Is there anyone like to speak against this item? If there's no one, then may I please have a show of hands in support of this item? That is carried 6-0. Item 15, Community Development Reports, 15.1. Sorry, hang on, Councillor Rumble. 15.1, Request for Tender 4.25, Design and Construction of Panamonica Park, and 15.2, Request for Tender 5.25, Construction of Sports Lighting over Upgrades. I am going to call him late on the table due to we do not have a quorum and we have not received permission from the department.
Shame.
Thank you. 15.3, Bronze Wildlife Sculpture, Smith Sculptor. So the recommendation was allocate a budget of $109,146.82, $89,146.82 to complete contractual obligations under original contract RFT 4.15, design and construction of the Tom Price Mall Bronze Interactive Wildlife Sculpture, and $20,000 for freight and install costs. 2. Approve kangaroo sculpture 1.3 male hopping kangaroo and 1.4 female kangaroo with Joey in location of Onslow Anzac Memorial Park. I do know, Councillor Rumble, you have a proposed alternate recommendation for the consideration. Would you like to read that?
I do, Madam President. I don't actually have it right in front of me, but if my eyesight was
It's
very
on the
good,
board. Would you
I
like
can't
me
read
to read it?
I'd appreciate your eyesight's better
Okay,
than mine.
Councillor Rumble's proposed that council allocates a budget of $109,146.82, $89,146.82 to complete contractual obligations under original contract RFT 4.15, design and construction of the Tom Price Mall Bronze Interactive Wildlife Sculpture, and $20,000 for freight and install costs. 2. approve the kangaroo sculpture, 1.3 male hopping kangaroo and 1.4 female kangaroo Joey being installed at Information Bay in Paraburdoo. The reason for the change, the installation of the kangaroo sculpture, 1.3 male hopping kangaroo and 1.4 female kangaroo with Joey at the Paraburdoo Information Bay will complement the area. So, Councillor Rumble has moved this. May I please have a seconder for the alternative recommendation? Councillor White. Councillor Rumble, would you like to speak on?
I think it'll be a great asset in that information bay, and I think hopefully we'll get some good feedback off the community.
Councillor White, would you
I
like?
agree with councillor Rumble, that's all.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wants to speak against this item? This recommend alternate? No. Councillors, may I please have a show of hands in support? That is carried 6-0. Okay, sorry. Item 16. Just one moment, please.
Unless someone has been given permission
No.
to move it in her stead.
Has anyone been given permission to, from Councillor Sullivan? No. So as we do not have Councillor Sullivan online and she can't move this notice of motion, we will have to lay this on the table until she's available to do this at another time. Item 17, new business of an urgent nature introduced by council decision. L.1, Pilbara Regional Waste Management Facility Authority to enter contract. No. All right, sorry.
Confidential.
Yeah, that's been, yeah. So
I'll move to
Councillor, can I please have a mover and seconder to move this to accept the slate? Councillor White and Councillor Kapoor. Okay, can I please have a show of hands in support to accept this? That is carried 6-0. Okay. Item 18, confidential matters. So we are going to move behind closed doors. Councillors, may I please have a move and seconder to Okay, so with the Paraburdoo Regional Waste Management Facility Authority to enter into a contract, council has been unanimously votes and it's been carried 6-0. Item 19, next meeting. The next ordinary council meeting will be held at 1 p.m. on Tuesday, 20th of May at the council chambers, Onslow Shire Complex, 2nd Avenue, Onslow. 20, closure of meeting. There being no further business, I close this meeting at 1:59 p.m. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you.
Thank you, officers.